Two brothers stand on a hill above a river. One kills the other, and from that single act of violence, a city is born. A city that will rule the world for 1,000 years. A city that will collapse, rise again, burn, be rebuilt, and outlast every empire that ever tried to bury it. This is not the story of ancient ruins. This is the story of Rome. The whole story, from the day it was founded to the city standing right now. Let's begin. The year is 753 BC. Two twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, are fighting over where to build a city. Romulus chooses the Palatine Hill. Remus mocks him. He jumps over the half-built wall to prove it is too small. Romulus kills him on the spot. Whether this story is myth or memory, nobody can say for certain. What archaeologists have confirmed is this. By the 8th century BC, a settlement on 7 hills above the Tiber River was growing fast. Farmers, traders, soldiers. It had a name: Roma. The early city was ruled by kings, 7 of them over 2 centuries. Some were wise, some were tyrants. The last one, Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquin the Proud, was so brutal that in 509 BC, the people of Rome threw him out and swore they would never be ruled by a king again. They meant it. For the next 500 years, Rome would be a republic. The Roman Republic was not a democracy. It was a system of carefully balanced power. 2 elected consuls, a senate of aristocrats, and a set of laws that applied to everyone. In theory. In practice, Rome was a city permanently on the edge of civil war. Rich families fought for power. The poor demanded rights. Generals conquered new lands and came home too powerful to control. But the Republic also built something extraordinary. Rome defeated Carthage, the great rival empire of North Africa, not once, but 3 times. In the Third Punic War of 146 BC, Roman soldiers burned Carthage to the ground. Survivors say the flames burned for 17 days. Rome spread across Spain, Greece, Egypt, and the Middle East. By the 1st century BC, it controlled the entire Mediterranean coastline. Then something happened that Rome would never recover from. Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon River in 49 BC with his army, an act that was legally an act of war against his own state. He won. He became dictator. And on the 15th of March, 44 BC, the Ides of March, 23 senators stabbed him to death on the floor of the Senate. His blood was barely dry before the next civil war began. Out of the chaos, one man survived. Augustus, Caesar's adopted son. He was 20 years old when Caesar died. He was 36 when he stood before the Senate and announced, quietly, that he was restoring the Republic. He was lying, brilliantly. What Augustus actually created was the Roman Empire, the most powerful state the ancient world had ever seen. He kept the Senate, he kept the elections, but he held every real lever of power himself. Under Augustus and the emperors who followed, Rome reached its absolute peak. 1 million people lived in a city of marble temples, towering apartment blocks, and public baths that could serve thousands at once. The Colosseum opened in 80 AD. The Pantheon, its concrete dome still the largest unreinforced dome in the world, was completed in 125 AD. 11 aqueducts delivered 1 million cubic meters of fresh water to the city every single day. For 2 centuries, the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, held.
Trade flowed across 60,000 miles of roads. Latin spread from Scotland to Syria. Then came the emperors who should never have had power. Caligula, who declared himself a god and executed people for sport. Nero, who blamed Christians for burning the city he may have burned himself. Commodus, who renamed Rome after himself and fought in the gladiatorial arena. Then came the plagues, the invasions, the economic collapse. In 410 AD, the Visigoths sacked Rome, the first foreign army to enter the city in 800 years. The people of the empire could not believe it. Saint Jerome, writing from Bethlehem, said, "The city that conquered the world has itself been conquered." In 476 AD, the last Western Roman emperor, a teenage boy named Romulus Augustus, named after the city's founder, was deposed by a Germanic chieftain. The Western Empire was over. But Rome did not disappear. It transformed. The eastern half of the empire, Byzantium, based in Constantinople, survived for another 1,000 years. It preserved Roman law, Roman administration, and the Greek texts that the Western world had nearly forgotten. In the city of Rome itself, the population collapsed from 1 million to 30,000. The great aqueducts were cut. The Colosseum became a quarry, its marble stripped for churches. The Forum filled with weeds. But one institution survived everything: the Catholic Church, based in Rome, drawing its authority from the same city that had once crucified its founder. The Pope replaced the Emperor as the most powerful figure in the Western world. Medieval Rome was poor, small, and dangerous, a city of pilgrims picking their way through ancient ruins. But it was still Rome, and the world had not forgotten what that meant.
In the 15th century, Rome came back to life. The Renaissance, a rebirth of art, science, and classical knowledge, made Rome its spiritual home. Artists and architects arrived from across Europe, all of them obsessed with the ruins around them. Pope Julius II hired Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel. He commissioned Raphael to decorate the papal apartments. He gave Bramante the plans to tear down the old Basilica of St. Peter, the church built over the grave of the apostle, and replace it with the largest church in the world. It took 120 years to complete. St. Peter's Basilica, the dome designed by Michelangelo, the colonnade by Bernini, a building so large that the statue of Christ on its roof is taller than a 4-story house, and you cannot tell from the ground. Galileo was put on trial in Rome. Caravaggio fled Rome after committing murder. Napoleon marched into Rome in 1798 and declared it a republic, then changed his mind and annexed it to France. Rome had seen everything. It had outlasted everything. For most of its history, Rome was a city, not the capital of a unified country. Italy, as a single nation, did not exist until 1861, and Rome did not become its capital until 1870, when Italian forces broke through the city walls near the Porta Pia gate. The Pope locked himself inside the Vatican and refused to come out. The standoff between the Italian state and the Catholic Church lasted 59 years. Then came Mussolini. In 1922, Mussolini marched on Rome with his fascist militia and took power. He was obsessed with ancient Rome, with the idea that modern Italy could recapture the glory of the Caesars. He tore down medieval neighborhoods to excavate ancient monuments. He built the Via dell'Imperio, the street of the empire, running straight through the Forum to the Colosseum. In 1940, he entered World War II on the side of Hitler. It was a catastrophic mistake. By 1943, Allied forces had landed in Sicily. Mussolini was arrested by his own king. The Germans occupied Rome. Resistance fighters were executed. the city trembled. On June 4th, 1944, American forces entered Rome. It was the first Axis capital liberated in the war. The ancient city had survived another conqueror. After the war, Rome rebuilt again. The 1950s and 1960s brought la dolce vita, the sweet life. Federico Fellini captured it on film. Audrey Hepburn ate gelato at the Trevi Fountain. Vespa scooters wove between ancient columns. The world fell in love with Rome all over again. The 1960 Summer Olympics were held in Rome. The marathon was run at midnight through the city streets, lit by torches, past the Arch of Constantine, past the Appian Way, past ruins that were already ancient when the Roman Empire was young. Today, Rome is a city of nearly 3 million people. It is the capital of the Italian Republic, home to the Vatican, the world's smallest country, and host to over 30 million tourists every year. Underneath its streets, plague pits, Roman roads, buried temples, medieval walls. Archaeologists are still finding new chambers beneath the Colosseum, new frescoes beneath Pompeii, new scrolls carbonized by Vesuvius that AI is only now beginning to decode. The Pantheon is still standing. The Colosseum is still standing. The Forum where Caesar was murdered is still standing. Every stone in this city remembers something. Two brothers stood on a hill in 753 BC. One killed the other, and the city built from that violence has refused for 2,779 years to die. It survived the Visigoths, the plague, the Middle Ages, Napoleon, and the Nazis. It survived its own worst emperors. It is surviving right now, underneath the tourists and the traffic and the noise. Layer upon layer, century upon century, the most continuously inhabited city in Western history. Here is what we want to know from you. Of all the eras of Rome, the Republic, the Empire, the Renaissance, the modern city, which one would you most want to have lived in? Tell us in the comments below. If this story moved you, if the weight of 2,700 years hit you the way it hit us, hit the like button. It takes 1 second, and it helps this channel reach more people who love history. Subscribe to Noble History Studios, because our next video takes you to a civilization even older than Rome, a city that was already ancient when Romulus picked up his sword. Noble History Studios, where the past lives again.